Come on by and have a bite at the Crossroad Diner, the place where your spirit goes when it might just be time to change direction. Hey, welcome back to the Crossroad Diner. I'm Steve McCurdy, your host. You know, I love to say that everybody's got a story, and I've discovered as I've gotten older that the stories change and grow and evolve. And you get to a certain point and the world kind of says, okay, your stories are done, and you're not ready for that. My guest today is an expert in that area, and I'm going to have her introduce herself to you right now.
Hi, I'm Sharon Rolph. I live north of Seattle, and I am a behavioral scientist, a potential maximizer, and a spark and retirement coach.
Okay, now this is the part that got me. This is the part that got me fired up. One of your focuses is boomers. So give us a little profile about what you're doing with folks in that chapter.
Well, last year, Ken Dykewald wrote What Retirees Want. And he's quite the researcher. He's been following the boomer wave for 45 years. And he recently I think he just turned 70. So he's one of us. Right. And he says in there, and I totally agree, that, okay, so back when I was a teenager, I loved potential. The mystery of what is my potential. Well, he says all this retirement free time is an untapped potential, a resource. And I'm here to motivate you.
Okay. Well, the diner is about folks who, at any point in life, and most of our focus is kind of on front end. Most of us have some experience changing direction and learning and expanding and realizing that something that we thought we were going toward really was to go a little. So let's back up for your life. Where were you when you started your career, when you left high school and moved into the next step for you?
Well, I was raised on a 100-acre farm in eastern Washington. I milked cows, stacked hay, Wow. Yeah. That hard work, In fact, later, when I was in Texas, I delivered mail, and I thought, all that stacking hay pays off when you're delivering mail. Woo! What a bonus!
What was that? What was your ambition then? What was your direction? What did you want for yourself?
I was just kind of want a generic, get a career. And I was a lifelong learner. I was the only one in my family who went to college. So, have you ever heard the joke? They're out standing in their field. That was me.
Okay. And then how did that materialize? What happened as a result of that initial direction?
Well, I guess one of my first jobs down here in downtown Seattle was, I only went to college sort of full time, but it was part time. I was on campus for just 1 year. So all my education has been inch by inch, night school, weekends. I even used a week or two of vacation time to go to college over in Idaho I had to repeat a course. And so it wasn't remarkable. It was just, nose to the grindstone and put a roof over your head and get your car and fit in, be diligent, be trustworthy, integrity. So it was just kind of what you do then, riding the wave of here's what you're expected of you. And I bet you that might fit a lot of boomers too.
Right. Yeah, most of us were parented by folks who had experienced the Depression and who were very security focused. They wanted something that they could understand for their children. And if we wanted to get out of that path for any reason, we had to deal with their fears and their concerns, as well as our own uncertainty about what was going to happen next. So, how did that evolve for you? What ended up being your direction?
Well, I did spend 19 years at GTE. That was a steady company, the phone company. And they were the ones that transferred me to Tampa, Florida. And I was just there a year when they offered a incentive to leave. And by that time, I'd become knowledgeable enough about my talent and skill that I figured I was I had the skills for being a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that, I was 2,000 miles away from anybody that really knew me well. And
Right.
consultants get work by a lot of word of mouth,
Sure.
vouching for my character and my reliability and my honesty and all that stuff. And so that was, I was still glad that I was courageous enough to follow my heart and leave. It just might not be in all the circumstances that you want
Right.
to be, set up to, wisely. But
What did you learn from that? That was a big leap. That was a leap of faith. And you were outside of your comfort zone in many ways, physically, the part of the world you were in and the field you were going into. How did that evolve for you?
Well, Steve, even before I moved to Tampa, I had a sense for a couple years, I guess, that I would be leaving the Northwest. So
Okay.
I kind of looked around and said, what would I miss here? And I decided I would miss the seagulls. Well, there are seagulls in Tampa, Florida, but I at the same time, I was going through. I remember standing in my front driveway and feeling kind of like a newborn baby. I had been working through the recovery process of the abuse that was in our home.
Okay.
And trying to rebuild life back to something normal and loving myself.
Sure.
And so this feeling like a newborn baby kind of was like learning to love, or what love was, all over again. So that was, and that sense of leaving here had been, like I say, 2, maybe even 3 years. So that leap of faith to even go to Tampa was, a lot of people just, my friends are here. I'm not going to leave here. This is what I know. Well, all that unknown is mainly that my lesson there, Steve, is that I would go into work and say, okay, if I needed a certain kind of item, I would go to the Ace Hardware here. Where do I go in Tampa, Florida?
Mm-hmm.
When I need an insurance agent, where do I go for an insurance agent? I had to be a learner all over again.
Right.
And so that was a big lesson about having both the courage to believe and being willing to be a learner. But I also had my goodbye party here. Some friends brought a camera and would ask people that came, what's your words of wisdom for Sharon as she leaves? And one of them, the message really stuck out was, give yourself at least 4 to 6 months before you decide to come home, because there's not enough friends down there, that allow yourself some space to start over.
Right.
And now I remembered that a lot. And the same time, I remember even on the plane to Florida that I was reading Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Love that book.
Yeah, it's good.
And in fact, I remember paying for my nieces and nephews to come down to Orlando to Disney World. And they said, well, Stephen, one of his principles, start with the end in mind. And I thought, well, I'd like, when I'm gone, that people would stand up and say at my funeral, she was a generous person. So my tickets to bring the kids down there was kind of one of my efforts to be generous.
Right.
But I think I'm straying a little bit from your question.
No. This is good. This, you're learning, but I think all of this becomes foundation for the work that you're doing now. Because when the starting over that a boomer has to do when careers change or end and retirement or something like it begins. So many of us, that work was our identity, and we're so much more than that. So speak to that for a minute.
Well, because I was just doing what was expected in the culture, I didn't ever feel like I was a standout. The big lesson that came for me was when I retired. I listened to a webinar out of the UK by Andy Shaw called How to Have Mental Strength.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and let me hold that note, though. Another tidbit that happened in Florida was about the same time I got there was I decided that because of that little movie clip,
Right.
that I was going to refuse to live my life based on fear. And I would stomp my foot. And Joshua 1 says in like 6 different ways, do not be afraid, be courageous, be very courageous, be of good courage.
Oh, good courage.
And yeah, that made a big difference. So mental strength then, he says when you're facing something that kind of scares you and maybe it's a meeting or a decision that needs to be made and
Right.
How is it going to go well for you? And he says, what we call a warm memory, and hold it for 15 seconds and then go into your, challenging situation and it'll go much better for you.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually was doing a whole week-long kind of thing on this, but I only listened to the first day because the rest of the week I had conflicts with his. But I would pop in long enough to get his notes and copy him into one of my docs here. And I spoke recently in Phoenix, and I wanted to make sure I told his story correctly. And so I went back to my notes, and I was shocked that the rest of the week was actually saying, and he pointed it out in that first day, but some new things you need to repeat it. And he said he had been in a point where he had been very successful, and then life took a dive. And he knew that if he didn't control his thoughts, he could not control his life. Right. That is mental strength.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I looked at my notes to the end of the week when I realized that this warm memory is just the cusp of the whole teaching. And yet, what it did for me about a week or two after the meeting, I thought, why just have one more memory? Why don't I see how many I could list? And my list was probably 8, 9, 10 things. The shock was half of those were in front of people. Had I been in the wrong career? So about that same time, I also had gotten a profile result telling me that I was an influencer.
Okay.
Me, an influencer? Well, because of the abuse in the home, I had decided, I'm so glad he keeps his hands off me and to not rock the boat. It's better to not be seen to be safe.
Right.
So, way down deep inside, I felt invisible. And so this being an influencer, that'd be crazy. I don't think that's me. I think there's a wrong error in this profiler. But when I saw the list of the places where I got such a warm experience such a warm feeling from was in front of people. So I decided maybe take some baby steps as if that's true and see what happens. And
was this as a speaker? What kind of thing were you doing?
Well, Toastmasters.
Oh, okay.
Dale Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
I had been
public speaking type of environments.
Yeah. And
So
I
what was
had I was both an MC and a director of a singles um, conference that we would put on here yearly.
okay.
And one of my memories from that was somebody holding a mic in front of my face and interviewing me, for a radio. And it wasn't a big, warm feeling, but I was seen. I was noticed. And that mattered to me. In fact, a lot during my life, being heard was just such a precious thing
Right.
that you can offer people.
Right. Yeah. It's a very simple thing that you can offer and very, very valuable. So the work that you're doing now, talk to me a little bit about, I mean, you've dipped your foot into social media, some things that you were telling me about before we started recording that are things that, completely new to me. So talk about this philosophy that you have and how you're going about it.
Well, so my last job so I went in through the process of training to get a behavioral science degree.
Okay.
And most behavioral scientists look at all the people with addictions,
Right.
They need some help. I don't want to work with them. I wanted to work with people who are good and want to get better. So I think it was Tuesday this week, somebody called themselves a maximizer. Well, that profile, or one of the profiles, it called me a maximizer too.
Okay.
And I thought, well, since I love potential and I'm a maximizer, let's put them together, and I'm a potential maximizer. And that's where redeeming all these trillions of hours of free time that boomers have is so important to me, So let's see, I need to get back on track here.
That's great.
Oh.
Are you familiar with Sean Akers' work on positive psychology?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you're echoing him very.
Daniel Goleman. Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's study the people that are doing it well and help other people do that. I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me how that manifests. Tell me how that. What's this? What is this?
Well, this is my new business card, Discover Your Inner Spark.
Okay.
And I made it for when I went down to Phoenix to speak. But the best way I was able to use my master's degree at Boeing was becoming an employee involvement facilitator.
Okay.
Well, employee involvement facilitator there was trying to take the problem solving down to the lowest levels. Mm-hmm. Well, the old farts at Boeing didn't want to solve their own problems. They wanted to blame somebody. Mm-hmm. So I had a hard job, but I didn't care because I was trying to empower them. Sure. And I'm still trying to empower people to believe in themselves. And one of the things I've been doing recently on Queen of Courage on Instagram is knowing who you are.
Yes.
On the inside. As soon as I retired, the week before I retired, I started a coaching program. And it had come to me through an inbox at Boeing. And they said, and I thought, Sharon, facilitating and empowering and then becoming a coach all seemed to kind of fit together. And it seemed like a logical next step, even though I was retiring. So the first thing we did in coaching class was to write our essence statement. And I put essence as part of my title for my book, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment. But essence kind of goes over people's heads. It's too vague a term.
A little obscure.
Yeah. So I decided to change it to Finding Your Inner Spark.
Yeah. That's
and inner spark, I correlate to your I think God puts a mystery inside of us, and it's up to us to discover it.
Absolutely.
So your inner spark could be thought of as your soul or your GPS or your DNA, maybe even.
Or your hunger.
Pardon?
Your hunger, the thing
Hunger.
that you trying to figure out, what do I really want here?
Yeah, another
that
term
leads you
for
to
it
those questions.
might be intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
It's just there. Nobody needs to pour some energy into you. You can handle this because this comes from your heart. And so that.
But also because we're all raised with some, the people that we believe know what the answers are, the adults around us and our leadership, our teachers. We hear what they're saying in the way of shoulds and oughts and direction. And that sometimes is louder than that little inner voice that you're talking about. And we have to get to a place where we go, okay, they were right about things, but this is not completely right for me. And in that silence, you start hearing that truer, older voice. And it looks like this is resonating for you. You want to address that some?
Yeah. For our coaching class, we had to give a couple of book reports.
Right.
And the first book I chose to read was The Joy Diet. And it's written by Martha Beck. And it's really a different approach to joy. But her first item, I might even have it close by, but her first chapter was, she had 10 menu items on her joy diet.
Okay.
And the first menu item was nothing. Her approach was to have us sit for 10 or 15 minutes daily, quietly doing nothing.
Right.
Let all those thoughts mosey in and out of your mind. Just pay attention to your breathing and sit quietly.
Right.
That's where I learned that there is a voice that will talk to us if we listen. And amazing thing, I've been raised in the church all my life. And so I think I've had various occasions where I heard a message. Even while I was writing my book, there was times I said, okay, it's actually one of the podcasts. I needed a tagline. What should I use as a tagline? So I sat on my couch and say, all right, I'm just listening. What should it be? And it would pop up. And now I daily, as I'm going to sleep and as I'm waking up, I pray for 20 people. And while I'm praying, those new messages may come to me. What I need to do today. Somebody I need to be in touch with. Like this morning, I felt I've been really concerned that my one sister has been on disability for decades with rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm hearing ways that people are finding to heal yourself. And so I felt prompted on my wall here is a message of, in fact, Martha Beck in her sequel book, Integrity, I got this out of her book, but when people have had near-death experiences, they often come back with a message, and that's the message. And I felt prompted to... I
can't read it from here.
Okay, I think I have a document up here. I can read it to you. Here it is. You are infinitely worthy. You are infinitely precious. You've always been enough. You will always be enough. There's not a place you don't belong. You are lovable. You are loved. You are love. And I shared that with my sister this morning after being prompted to help her in my humble way to heal. And you just let it go, God's in control. So,
well, what I want you to do is as we start wrapping up here is I want you to consolidate all that into folks, for folks who are, the kind of reinvention thing that you're talking about in Spark, no matter where you are in life, that's essential. That's very essential. But when you have got all this time on your hands and when your identity, changes because of retirement and things, tell us about how folks can learn about your book and how they can be a beneficiary of your encouragement.
Well, I am in the process, just probably in the next 2 weeks, launching a course that I invite 5 people to be beta testing with me, my course on Discover Your Inner Spark, how to find the fire that in your heart that lights the world.
Okay.
Let me see.
How can people volunteer for candidacy?
Okay. Yeah, email me at Sharon at effortlessvitality.org. And let's see. Oh, here's my other document. Bring it up.
We'll put this in the notes. We'll put your email in the notes as well as on screen for the video version. Sharon at effortlessvitality.org. And they can reach out to you and you can include them in your plans for this test.
Yeah, the idea, I've got this process that I learned in coaching school that I'm going to walk them through. It's a lot of looking in, I'm not sure we're really good about reflecting, but this is very much a course on reflecting on what's inside of you, what's made your heart sing. Right. Just like, So my audience is retirees who want to know they can still be meaningful contributors. Right. And the course teaches lonely and empty retirees to feel whole, genuine, and energized by accepting their deep wisdom to find an intrinsic motivation and purpose. And the course, I was stumbling over that. Discover your spark. Change the world with the fire in your heart.
That's great. So Sharon Rolph, and we are going to be, that's Sharon at effortlessvitality.org. And thanks for being on the diner today. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to your interacting with your audience.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you next time around. Come back and spend some time in the diner. Come on by and have a bite at the Crossroad Diner, the place where your spirit goes when it might just be time to change direction.